repeating because it's worth people knowing. Jacob Blake, if you don't know his name, you should know it. He was just shot in the back 7 times by police trying to get into his car in front of his 3 daughters. Now, I'm going to repeat this part again as well because it's also super important. Conservative times. I don't even want to say conservative anymore because the Republican Party is not conservative. It's reactionary, if anything, and it doesn't adhere to any sort of conservative philosophy. It's small government. It's not fiscally conservative or responsible, as they used to call it. It's abandoned its party platform. But their talking points here, in an effort to prop up, basically, is or racist enforcement of the law, I should say, is that he had a warrant out for his arrest. And as I was just saying, a warrant out for your arrest doesn't mean you're guilty, because we have a system of innocent until proven guilty and trial by jury in this country. And 2, it's not a death penalty offense to have a warrant out for your arrest. So there was absolutely no reason to kill this man. His back was to the police when he was shot. And I just want to compare and contrast to a 17-year-old who showed up at a protest because of the Jacob Blake shooting, who actually was carrying and actually shot 3 people, actually killed 2 people, and walked right past police who, when they showed up on the scene and people were saying, this guy's the shooter, were looking for the killer and just ignored the white boy everybody was pointing at. Now, ultimately, this guy just absconded from the scene, took off to Illinois, where he was admittedly detained, and now he's going to be tried for first-degree murder. But the fact that the police just walked past the 17-year-old with an assault rifle is absolutely egregious. Now, it's true that that state has an open carry law, but in order to open carry, you have to be 18. So this was a known guy. He was was known as the Police Explorers program, which is basically pre-police, or maybe you might call it auxiliary police, but it was for young folk who wanted to get to know what police work was like. So he was a known quantity, and they knew how old he was in theory. So it's just absolutely insane. Yeah, so didn't some 17-year-old shoot black people? No, not 17 times. Okay, geez. There was a black man, Jacob Blake, who was shot 7 times in the back. This has touched off a bunch of protests, including the NBA boycotting basically any games, the players not playing any games, as well as actual physical protests of the sort to which we are accustomed now. There was a protest in Kenosha at which there were militants, actually people who claimed to be part of a militia, walking around with assault rifles, and a 17-year-old shot 3 people. He killed 2 of them and injured 1. How did the kid even get an assault rifle? That's a great question. That's just America for you. He was able to just have an assault rifle because, actually, I take it back. It wasn't even his gun, according to reporting. So I'm not 100% sure how he got the assault rifle. I do know that open carry was illegal for him because he wasn't old enough. So what's happening in this country is absolutely insane, and it is absolutely critical that he be properly tried for the killing of these protesters, because beyond just the fact that the killing which sparked the protests was egregious, the response to the protests by this militia was egregious. The fact that you have law enforcement on the scene basically ignoring somebody with a gun who people are saying is shooting folks, that, aside from that being egregious, the fact that somebody would be empowered to do that and kill protesters is exactly the sort of slide or descent into authoritarianism which precipitated the Nazi regime. And we've spoken about this. I've said this many, many times. Read In the Garden of the Beast, which is the accounts of the American diplomat to Nazi Germany during Hitler's ascent. And one of the characteristics of the changing political discourse in Nazi Germany was that the SA, the brown shirts, became more and more violent. And as they became more and more violent, dissent was shut down because people did not want to piss off these stormtroopers patrolling the streets. And the German police, which in this case were under the control of the central government. So that's not like what we have here in the United States. We do not have central control of the police, which some people think is terrible, but in certain cases can be a godsend. The police in Germany simply ignored the violence of the SA and their political violence to shut down dissent because they worked for the central government in which the Nazis had, well, they didn't have a majority of parliament, but the prime minister was Hitler, who was the leader of the Nazi party. So they were the ruling members in the parliament. So this is incredibly disturbing that the police would just let armed people walk around a protest, and that when accounts were given of somebody shooting someone, they wouldn't immediately detain the people with guns, or they wouldn't immediately take seriously claims that a 17-year-old with a long gun was the murderer, allowing that person the opportunity to escape. It's really, really important that we not set the precedent that the police or the law will be selectively applied to people who are opponents of Donald Trump, and supporters of Donald Trump will be able to get away with murder, particularly political inspired murder. Really, really, really important. Just absolutely cannot stress this enough. As protesting becomes more dangerous, we'll see whether or not people stick to it. Obviously, I'm hoping they will. And yeah, having seen what went down the other day, I just ordered some goggles today. Not because I think that's going to protect me from some jerk kid with a rifle. Obviously, it won't. But because, I think the tear gas and the mace might be coming. How is anyone allowed to have an assault rifle? That's only used in war? No. Assault rifle is so technically speaking, an assault rifle is any automatic rifle with a pistol grip. Which is to say, a pistol grip is a vertical grip, right? So usually your long gun, your long rifle, is like, you might think of like a Remington with a pump, not a pump action, but a lever action. And so people think of rifles or long guns as guns which only shoot one bullet at a time, and then you have to cock the hammer each cycle. But there are lots of automatic rifles where you just put in a cartridge and you can just keep firing. Now, as long as your rifle doesn't have a forward pistol grip, or actually a rear pistol grip either, I suppose, doesn't have a pistol grip, then it's not an assault rifle. And again, there are lots and lots of rifles which are not assault rifles, which basically function like an assault rifle. They're just an auto-loading long gun. So the characterization of an assault rifle as something that's only used in war, or somehow significantly more dangerous or lethal than simply an automatic rifle or a semi-automatic rifle is, automatic rifles are more dangerous than semi-automatic rifles, but like these, even that's debatable. But these semi-automatic rifles are not it's not the assault rifle class that makes a rifle dangerous. It's just a large magazine and the capacity to shoot a lot of bullets. But this person didn't shoot a lot of bullets, right? It doesn't really matter that it's like this, quote, assault rifle. It happened to be an assault rifle, but 3 bullets can hit 3 people and be just as deadly, especially from the range at which these folks were operating. So how is anyone allowed to have an assault rifle that's only used in war? The short answer to your question is these assault rifles can be used for hunting as easily as anything else. and non-assault rifles aren't any less dangerous to humans. Do people know cops in the Netherlands and UK do not even carry guns? Yes, I think they do, although there are special units in those countries that do have firearms. But I think also, are people aware that almost every civilian in Switzerland has a gun? Simon Sachs, he should be charged with domestic terrorism. It does not seem he was acting alone. He was acting in a militia, which actually brings me to another really important point, which is that this person was 17 years old. There were adults in this person's life who encouraged him to participate in the Police Explorers program. Now, perhaps that's not bad, but to participate and condoned him operating in this militia, who trained him in this militia, who encouraged him to go out to this protest, and ultimately trained him in a way that led up to this shooting of political protesters at this rally. So the idea that there are adults who at every step of the way encouraged this child to take the actions which led to a minor illegally open carrying and illegally murdering people, and then fleeing to another state, and now to go on trial for first-degree murder is it's absolutely incredible and egregious. It's so difficult to believe that this is something that actually happens. Didn't Hitler wipe out the SA with his SS? Ultimately, well, he didn't wipe out the SA with the SS, but the SA and SS were definitely at each other's throats. And ultimately, the head of the SA was killed in the, what is it, Night of Long Knives or something? And the SA was made the superior force, or the dominant force, the more elite force. Although I guess the SS was always the elite troopers. When is Tiffany's Trump speaking? I have no idea. Are you going to see Trump's closing speech tomorrow? Probably not. I didn't really watch the Democratic convention, and I'm not really interested in watching the Republican convention. I just don't care. Like, am I seeing anything new? Am I seeing anything that opens my eyes to what the Republicans believe? I'm quite sure that I don't agree with them, and I'm quite sure that they need to go down. So that's sort of the deal. Dorian Key, AR-15s are useless for hunting. They destroy the meat. I guess that depends why you're hunting. Like, are you hunting to kill animals, or are you hunting to eat? And I wouldn't say that they're useless for hunting. Like, they're still going to kill something. It's true, though, that the bullet they fire tumbles like an M16, I believe, which, yeah, shreds up the muscle tissue. But ultimately, like, you know, that's not what makes it an assault rifle. And that has to do with, like, the ammunition type. Dorian Key, is this person going to be tried as an adult? That I don't know the answer to, or just get sent to juvie. I don't know if this person's being tried as an adult. So that's something to watch for and see what the entire trial is going to be interesting, and see how it might differ from the way that law enforcement treats other segments of the population. Because already we can say that this was Bush's the same place. Oh gosh, who was it that they shot in Kenosha? I can't even remember, because there's so many times that Black people are shot. But it's very much the case that the Kenosha police do use lethal force against some members of the population, and clearly not against others. So there you have it. It would be insane if he just gets off easy. I would agree. Any updates on democratic struggles around the world? I think this is a reference to China and Belarus. There are no real updates on that, at least as far as I know. So sorry. I've honestly been just paying more attention to American politics at the moment anyway. And I do want to make this point. Before this, I was on a call with the Downtown Independent Democrats, And Mark Levine, who is a city council member from uptown and who is running for borough president, joined us. And he made the point, and this is important stuff, that if you receive a notice of eviction, and the courts are now processing evictions that were taking place before the pandemic. So before the pandemic, people could be evicted. Those evictions were shut down because the courts were shut down. And now as the courts reopening, they're processing those cases. So if you're served with a notice of eviction right now, just know that you can probably, from the city, just call 311. So please let folks know that if they're served a notice of eviction, to call 311, they can get free legal assistance. How was he able to get from Illinois to Kenosha? No, he got from Kenosha to Illinois, and he got there by driving. I don't know. Like, the answer is the police simply didn't pay him any mind. And after he killed the two people and shot the one, he simply left the scene, walking past police, and drove to Illinois. Of course, all the states have extradition with each other, so that wasn't very much help. He really should have tried to get to, well, I don't know what country would let us in. Mexico is actually taking Americans, so he could have gone to Mexico. Ben, do you realize Turkey and Greece might be months away from war? No. Is that another thing that I have to look into and follow? That's a pain in the butt. The last thing we need is a war between Turkey and Greece. I mean, it's one of the last things we need. The last thing we need is war generally. I suppose the last thing we really need is a war between China and the United States. You might as well throw Russia in there. But that's terrible to hear. I guess I'm going to have to go look into that. Oh, well. In any event, Turkey literally issued a proclamation that parts of Greek Thrace should belong to Turkey. Is that something new, though? They've been fighting over territory for a long time. So is it new that Turkey is calling for territory? I am not surprised that I'm not surprised about that. If they actually tried to move into that territory, I think we'd have a real issue. No, I believe it's true. I just don't believe it's new. In any event, whatever. And brand new. It's new. Haven't they been arguing over at least some territory for a long time? That island, not Corsica, but the island that's between them. Blast. Really, all my global geography is going. All my global geography is going out the window with this pandemic and this upcoming election. That being said, there's only 69 days to Election Day, and if you haven't volunteered for Joe Biden yet, I suggest, if you're at all interested in defeating Donald Trump, that you find some time. Greece has no chance versus Turkey. That's true, unless the European Union steps in, and NATO. Is Greece in NATO? Is Turkey in NATO? Turkey is not in NATO, I don't think. I can't remember now. Again, I used to know all of these things about the world, and now I've just let it all lapse because I'm just focused on the United States. I feel bad, but at the same time, there's kind of a lot going on here. Speaking of which, I wanted to mention for folks that the MTA has warned that without $12 billion in federal aid, the whole system's going to shut down. So, oh, thanks. Turkey is in NATO. You know, I was going back and forth on that. The only reason I was like, is Turkey in NATO is because there's a James Bond movie where Bond goes to Turkey. And Turkey is an ally of the West. And I was like, maybe Turkey's in NATO. I honestly can't remember these things anymore. But thanks, Dorian. So that means that if Greece attacks Turkey, the United States has to come to the aid of Turkey. Well, Donald Trump at least will like that. If there's two things he loves, it's supporting autocrats and picking on smaller countries and smaller people generally. So, yes, unless we get $12 billion in federal aid, the MTA is warning us all that the subway system's going to collapse, which is bad because I don't know if you know this, but New York City itself makes up about 8.5% of American GDP, all of its economic output, like 10%, and that's just the city. So, like, if Donald Trump is serious about saving the economy and reopening, keeping the subway open is going to be a big, important part of that. However, I am pretty sure that the actual plan of Donald Trump is not to save the U.S. economy, but in fact, let it deteriorate, particularly in urban areas like New York, so that he can show that everything's terrible under Democratic leadership. He may be the president, but New York's run by Democrats, and he just wants New York to be a flaming hellhole. And if that hurts the rest of the country's GDP, it doesn't matter, because most of New York's GDP benefits New Yorkers who live and work in New York. And what the rest of the country gets from it is tax revenue. But since the Republicans don't care at all about helping anybody and only care about cutting taxes and giving handouts to the mega corporations, the fact that New York's contribution to the federal tax base will precipitously decline is sort of irrelevant. Never mind as well the long run detriment of having one of your main economic engines, evaporate. Absolutely terrible. In any event, I mean, there's a lot going on, and honestly, I'm just tired today, so I don't really feel like talking. But I never miss the live, so that's the deal. My throat kind of hurts, kind of losing my voice. I don't know if I sound quieter to you, but I sound quieter to me. So yeah, I'm going to call it a night. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Hopefully I'll feel a little bit better tomorrow and we can do this all again at 9 p.m. But until then, thanks for understanding. I'll see you later.